Alrighty. Failure number 3 was working on just doing some drilling to get this rounded shape out. And have this thing down on the bench like this. Have the auger bit in a bit and brace using manual power, not using electricity, making sure I'm in control of the force. Things are going in, they're going in well. And the wood split right along here. All the way through to both sides. This thing is now also garbage. So, yeah, for those keeping score, third failure. I don't know. I had a feeling this was the one. This is not the one. So, the important thing, what are the lessons? What are the lessons that we can learn from these repeated non-stop failures? And is there a certain point where it does make sense to say, okay, yeah, maybe just put this project aside and don't work on it for a while until you've leveled up a little bit. Well, in this particular case, an auger bit is going to put some outward force against wood generally. So one thing that I could do future time is change the process a little bit, such that I make sure that this is the tallest part of the plane. I can get the blank down to basically a square template, which I think would hopefully just barely fit in the vise, which means that I could set this thing down flat in the vise, and then it would have clamping pressure along this side, so that anything forcing that would normally force the wood to split is counteracted by that outward pressure forcing the thing in. So that's step 1. Yeah, step 2 is honestly I think I don't know if there's another lesson. I don't know if there's another lesson to learn from this. What are the lessons that we've learned so far? Let me grab the other 2 templates. I'm still sort of curious with myself. So you're getting the raw, unvarnished experience. Okay. All right. So here we go. So plane number 1. What were the lessons we learned? 1, this was the lesson about the initial type of drill. Why am I forgetting the type of drill bit? Anyway, the initial type of drill bit, that when you go ahead and drill in a through hole in the center, is actually very hard to get the outer recess holes because they rely on that center bit to actually locate. So you should draw the counter bore. You should drill out the counter bore before you drill all the way through. Otherwise, you will ruin this, and then these things won't align. We also learned that it's a little difficult to make sure this thing is on center. And actually, that's one thing I didn't show with the 3rd version, which what I did with the 3rd version actually is I used a rabbet plane to cut down basically just an L groove, so then I could rest the saw plate against that groove and then cut the thing down, then finally cut that L groove off. But anyway, beyond that, this one was going okay. Managed to not split anything, although this one was all just saw relief cuts and chiseling, and then had started to go at it with rasp. But yeah, went to actually drill the stuff in. The holes don't line up. They're awful. Okay, so that's that one. Lesson from number 2. What did I do here? Lesson from number 2. Yeah, so this one, I gone in and chisel like this, trying to just remove this corner of material, and ended up knocking out the whole thing. Yeah, so lesson from number 2 is when you're using a chisel, I guess whenever you're using impactive force to try and remove some material, take a look at the wood and ask yourself, is that the easiest way? What is the way that the wood would be most inclined to relieve that stress? And actually, even looking at this stupid thing, because if I'd have just gone at it this direction, there's no way that there's this sort of error. It's not something that could happen. So, but this one, I did at least make the progress, and that this is closer to center. It's not quite perfect, but that's okay. It's a little bit difficult because I have to use 2 different saws to get this thing quite right, but close enough. And I was able to get the brass pins in line. They're still in there. I've got to pull them out to eventually put them into the replacement. And then yeah, number 3. Had not done as much shaping work. Had just gotten this front bed out, and yeah, I was having complaints about bits, which we talked about earlier, and then started going with the auger bit, which is my favorite bit. I just told y'all how much I like it in the last video, and managed to split this. So one thing that I had not done, which I guess is worth considering, is really just saying, like, look, let's do all of this stuff in an orderly formed or stepwise process. You know, I'd sit there and be like, I don't feel like drilling. Let's move on to let's do some hand rasp work, or let's cut through the holes or whatever, or let's work on shaping. Maybe it's better to say, look, there needs to be a specific order to this type of thing. Get the thing down to size. Well, okay. So the steps would be, one is cutting the, so cut the blank first off. Make sure it's nice and good. Make sure that at least the bottom edge is nice and flat. Go ahead and cut this recess to receive the saw plate. We don't necessarily care about the width being perfect at this point yet. That's fine. Make sure it's down to depth and vaguely vertical. Again, here, not perfect, but close enough for me to not stress out about it. From that point on, plane this thing down until it is really just at that height. So then honestly, we wouldn't even need to cut any relief off of the top of this corner. Then see if we can actually stick this thing in the vise, and then do all of the boring with the drill with the thing supported in the vise, so that there is force opposing any effort the wood might make to split. From that point, let's see, so if we're looking at this, we have a hole here, a hole here, a hole here. Basically, we're just using the radius of the hole to help define the shape, so we're not worrying about coming at it with a chisel and trying to get that nice. I also have a smaller set of rasps on their way, because the stuff I have is larger and too unwieldy to really do smaller curves. This hole, probably not this. This is probably a chisel thing. This will need to be cut out as well. So yeah, just shape the whole thing, and then work on these bottom these recesses, which I think would go through just fine. Are there any other lessons to learn? I don't know. I'm trying to have a positive. Trying to cover up for the frustration by just having a positive attitude. Like, all right, cool. Let's make this a learning experience, because it sure wasn't a creating experience, right? And I'm only half convincing myself. I don't know. The funny thing is, I'm looking back now at this first one. I'm saying, like, it's close enough. Like, how much does this actually matter? Does it really? Maybe it doesn't. No, this is pretty bad. Like this. The holes are just not remotely aligned, and it'd be awful trying to get the saw plate in there and everything. But anyway, that's version number 3. Didn't think I'd have a failure again quite this early. I am starting to run out of cherry wood. I have some that is, I could probably get maybe 3, 4 more attempts in. Part of the problem is the remaining wood that I have transitions from heartwood to sapwood. That's more noticeable on this side. I want to make sure that I try and avoid the that transitionary area in the tool. But we'll see what we can do. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this was this. I think a lot of it is expectations management, right? You have to be comfortable taking a very long time to learn all the lessons, and you have to be comfortable saying, like, look, whenever you screw something up, you're not going to learn every possible thing that could go wrong at that point in time. And I think this is easier. It's easier if you're like speedrunning a video game, right? You're trying to play through Mario. You learn that. You learn, oh shoot, there's a hole there, I need to jump. You get a little bit further, you realize, okay, I got to step on the enemy or whatever. And it's easier to have those fast iteration loops. It is harder to do that with hand tools. You have to sit there with your lessons much longer, and that can be frustrating. But I think that is something that I need to get better at, just almost expecting. Like I should expect. I don't know. Maybe that's it. It's like let's go in expecting the fourth one to find some new way to fail. It's like the Edison quote about I didn't fail. I just discovered 97 ways how not to make a light bulb or whatever the thing was. Yeah, it's a different. I wish I was growing up in a different time when this was like a more common thing. I would love to be able to just sit back and like hang out with neighbors and just and say like, hey, how many times did it take you to actually build a thing that you wanted to do? It's like this stuff isn't particularly common anymore, and so particularly when you're looking at woodworking stuff or whatever on YouTube, like you're seeing the people who are interested in it and good enough at it to invest the time into making YouTube videos about it, generally speaking. And so you're already getting warped perspective there, and you're already pulling from a relatively small sample. But yeah, I mean, I could always just go at this with a router or something, like a power router. I don't have one. I can go buy one and then just knock this out in some arbitrarily small period of time. But that's not what I want to do, and the whole purpose of this is to learn. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think I'm convincing myself, at least a little bit more than when I started this video, to be less frustrated and more just not grateful for the opportunity, but at least understanding that, like, look, this is what learning is actually like. I was very good in school, but I was very good at figuring out, what the teachers wanted to hear. This person really likes when someone writes an essay on controversial takes or whatever. Or, this person really has this sort of attitude toward blah blah blah. So let's make sure to write to that. I like that this is for that, and I've talked about that in the past. Alrighty, time to drop another blank. Get started on that. I don't know. We'll see when I have time to continue working on it, but I have a process for how to continue forward with this. There's potentially a challenge that I'm not positive the thing is going to fit in the vise, because it'll be just at the maximum depth of that vise. So I could rig something up with clamps, but that's not going to be quite what I want. We'll see what happens. All right, that's enough of me rambling. Have a good day. Bye.